Hello, guys. Welcome to Fitness Aces, a weekly live stream aimed at improving fitness and physical ability for tennis players of all levels and ages. My name is Dio Miranda. I'm a high performance exercise kinesiologist and a strength specialist training both the mind and the body at the Austin Tennis Academy. Thank you.
Hey guys, Josh Rifkin. I'm a master tennis performance specialist as well as a tennis coach at the Austin Tennis Academy.
Hi guys, Mike Kelly. I'm the lead strength and conditioning coach at Soto Tennis Academy in Sotogrande, Spain. And welcome to our show, Fitness Aces. And yeah, let's get on with it. So we'll go straight into our injury prevention and activation session. Hi guys, so the drill that I want to do today is slightly different to what we've been doing in the first 4 weeks. This is a loaded mobility stretch. You can do it unloaded, but it works very, very well as a loaded mobility stretch. The other exercises that we've been doing have been more in preparation for the upcoming session that you're doing, whether that's gym, whether that's on the tennis court itself. But what I wanted to do today is introduce this side of things with the loaded mobility. We have touched on it a little bit with things like the ankle mobility work, but this Jefferson curl, which we're going through today, is a massive exercise for the posterior chain, so the lower back, the hamstrings. You will get some calf stretch from it as well, but you can exaggerate that calf stretch depending on the variation that we choose. So if we just run the video for the Jefferson curl. So as we can see, what we want is a nice straight leg position. So as we stretch the hamstrings run across the knees. So if we can keep those knees nice and straight. And then this exercise has actually been around for a long, long time, but it's not a mainstream exercise, to be honest. And it's one that people often misinterpret for an RDL. So Dio went through the hip hinge pattern last week. This is not a hip hinge pattern. This is trying to flex and extend each vertebrae at the spine. So we're trying to move each vertebrae. So the spine, one vertebrae at a time as we roll down. So we start from the top, and then we go through the shoulders, through the mid back into the lower back. And then as you see, when I come back here, my head's still tucked in, but I straighten the lower back, the mid back, the upper back, and the head. And then the opposite as I go down. So the head's the first thing tucked in, then the upper back, shoulders, mid back into the lower back. This exercise is in its basic form in this video. Everybody should be able to perform this exercise and get somewhere close to either the top of their socks down towards the floor. But we can show you ways today of progressing and regressing this exercise a little bit as well. So what I want to do before I bring the boys in is just move back a little bit and just show you a couple of variations of that exercise. So if your mobility is decent, what I would say is move onto a platform. So I've just got a pile of books here. Again, something that you can quite easily do at home. Pile of books, anything to take you a little bit higher than the floor if you can get lower. The first thing we want to do is check our pelvis position. So we don't want to be in this position where the bum is pushed out. We want to tilt the pelvis, squeeze the bum, level those hips, and then from there we go chin, upper back, mid back, lower back, and then we can reach past the toes, hold for a few seconds, and then reverse that position as we come back up. So that I would say would be where we would either start or progress to next with this exercise. So the video that you were just shown, and then the exercise that I've just shown you there would be my first 2 points that I would start with this one. I just want to open it up to the boys now. Any Any suggestions or anything you guys want to add before we move on to other variations?
Yeah, I love again, these things that it looks really simple, right? Usually, I love things that work on the muscles that we cannot see exactly what you're doing. You know, that's the extensor chain, right? We always focus on the things we can see in the mirror because it's the human way to do things. But things like these are really important, and using right, you can also use them as an assessment itself. Like, you know, like if things hurt, if things feels tense when you put the head down or the head up, and you can bring, you know, maybe you bring in a little bit like mobilizations to the arms. You know, use it as an information, also as a mobilization. You know, so it just doesn't always have to be this exact way of doing things. So that's my 2 cents for now. As always, we can like break things down so deeply. So um, go ahead, Josh. I know you want.
Yeah, I always just want to speak. The as Mike was saying, that this isn't really that mainstream. A lot of people may not have seen this before or understand what the purpose of that is, but it is massively important. If you saw in Mike's video, if we could go back to that for 1 second, and I want to just talk about how when he starts the movement, he's moving. If you notice, the first thing he moves is his eyes and his head down, because that's where that spine is starting in the neck. And then the second thing to move, you'll actually see his arms turn forward, which is his shoulders rolling, because that's going to be, and right here his arms are going. So he's trying to get the lower cervical, or the upper mid back or upper thoracic spine to start moving first. So I just want to reiterate that point, and then it's totally reversed on the way back to the top. And how Mike was saying, it's a totally controlled movement, but you're trying to control movement in every segment of your spine. So it starts from the eyes leading down into the neck, down to the shoulder area, then mid back, and then low back, and then maybe even some of the hips and pelvis at the end, depends. And then you reverse that coming up top. So everyone should be able to control mobility in different segments of their spine. And then when we go out to the tennis court, we're going to be moving in a loaded capacity much more freely, rather than having areas of our body kind of be stuck and moving as blocks. So it's a good way. It's a good way to train different segments to be mobile and moving, that you don't have to think about when you're going out to play, or you're rotating, or we're moving so dynamically on the tennis court. And then a huge key point, Mike, when you said coming back to the top or starting with the fixed pelvis, and coaching point is when you come back top, is you would fix or tuck the pelvis, squeeze the glutes, and that can actually start your movement back to the top, especially because you're using, you said, the extensor chain, or for people watching, or the back side of your body. So those hips tuck, it's going to help support the lower back using the glutes. And you're actually going to be feeling your core and your glutes controlling movement within this whole mobility exercise. So it's a good way for the brain to kind of connect to the powerhouses of not only power, but stability with like the hips, glutes, and then the core. So it's a really cool movement. And a lot of people watching might be like, well, no, my low back, like I can't bend like that, my low back. And I would guess, and then you guys can jump in, that there's some sort of movement that is going in segments that are not independent, like, or they're not in the right sequence, in the sense that the low back is probably taking on some of that pressure there. You guys think about that component?
Yeah, I think it's an educational exercise. It teaches you we should be able to be comfortable in uncomfortable positions, or not uncomfortable positions, so comfortable in awkward positions. Like we get into that a lot of time when we're on the court. So I think in a controlled environment, through something like a Jefferson curl, teaching those positions, if you do get lower back pain from this, or the deadlift that we went through last week, I think that's, like Dio said, it's a bit of a screen, and that's an easy screen for us, because if you get discomfort or pain in these movements, it's easy for us to go, why are you getting pain? Why are you getting discomfort in these movements? And then we can break it down and have a look. I think a really common one that we see in the Jefferson curl is people are able to get that curvature through the neck, through the upper back into the mid back, and then all of a sudden through that lower back, we just get that little straight line, and they don't have the ability to differentiate between vertebrae lower down in the spine, which is massive. It's vital to be able to do that, to be able to then mobilize it, increase the flexibility. But then, like I said with this one, this can be a loaded stretch. So because I'm stuck in the house and I can't get to the gym at the moment, I've just been using a bottle of water to help load that stretch. But then as soon as I come back up, I'm using my strength in the lower back and the hips to try and move back through that range as well. So it's again what we try and do within these programs is give you exercises that you get a lot of bang for the buck. So you get a lot of things out of one movement as opposed to just this is only going to work this. So this exercise is great for the hamstrings, but it's a teaching exercise. It's an educational exercise for the spine. If you were to, I'm just going to move back again. If you were to if you had a slant board, would be the best thing to do. But if you can just use books or even a yoga block to prop your toes up onto, as soon as you lift your toes and then go back into that Jefferson curl position, then we bring the calves in even more. So we're now stretching through an extra joint. So we're taking the ankle and the calves through a little bit of a stretch as well, or a mobilization as well, depending on how we use it. And these drills are excellent. They're things you can do post travel as well. So if you're a player that travels a lot to competitions, sitting for long periods on flights, hamstrings get short, lower back starts to ache. Things like the Jefferson curl, as soon as you get off, like to stretch the hamstrings, the lower back, but then into maybe like we'll go through one day the couch stretch or something to get into the hips. Massive areas that we really need to look after, because it's not just what we do immediately before we get onto court that influences how we perform on court. What we do for the rest of the day has a massive impact on how we perform on the court as well. So traveling is a huge part of a tennis player's life when you get to a certain level. So things like this drill post travel is essential. It's one of my favorite stretches. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, for the people out there, the listeners, the viewers, if you're looking for something to body-mind connection, this is your movement right here, where you can take some time to connect your mind with your body and see how it can connect even more. You'll be so surprised how many athletes out there are not in connection with their own body because they see it as a robot or a rock or like something that they see on themselves, that they're so tough that they go out there and play. But backtrack a little bit, and these are the little things that can help you improve yourself even more as you connect with yourself doing these just basic movements that are so powerful. It's the little, going back to it, right? The old saying, the little things, the basic things that move you forward and make you better. So this is great.
I have one more thing I want to say on this, and then I'll stop talking on it. But let's say, so the Dio brought up the body mind connection with this movement, and Mike said this was a huge teaching tool, really. And let's say you're really really tight in the calves or hamstrings, or you're coming back from knee issues or low back, and there's some fear with doing this full bend. There are little ways you can build back to hopefully get to that full Jefferson curl, that a baseline everyone should be able to do. So I just want to show one thing or two, one and a half things that, like, maybe someone can start if there's a little fear there or apprehension, or as Dio was saying, like really connecting to your body. So if you just start laying on the ground flat and you're not used to moving your hips, you can start to do just pelvic tilts, right? Like where you're just moving you're just moving your belt line, and you can do this laying on your back when there's no stretch or fear of bending forward. But let's say we get to that point, taking the lower body out of it, you can be sitting up tall in this kind of posture. Let's see, can you see the hips a little bit? So kind of tough to see here, but you're really going to be doing the Jefferson curl or the movement just from your pelvis or your low back. And I'm going to be pushing each vertebrae or segment from the butt bone into the lower back and the hips, and then coming back to the top. So I'm not really trying to move my upper spine or neck or shoulders. So I'm working through those movements, and it's really tough to see because the shorts are black and the gray shirt and everything. But what you're really doing is taking this hip part and you're pushing the hips into the low back one segment at a time through the whole lower spine, which Mike said a lot of times when you get that Jefferson curl, we get good rounding, and then all of a sudden that back just kind of flattens out. Maybe because there's lack of mobility and being able to move it, maybe because there's extreme tightness in the glutes and hamstrings. There's many, many reasons coming back from injury, but starting in that position can give the brain a little sense of safety because you're sitting on the ground. I'm not bending forward, right? You can even lean. You can go back. Dio and I use this a lot with the like global abs, where you do the same thing as that Jefferson curl, Mike, but the legs are out of it. So you're just going from the lower back and then unrolling one segment at a time, all the way down to the shoulder blades, and then reversing the movement from the neck and then up through the spine. Another way to just go through those positions where I'm stable on the floor, so I won't have fear there, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. If there's that bending forward pattern, I love it, but a lot of people are like, my back, I can't do that.
Yeah, and I think that's it. So within 15 minutes, we've given you from the very basic, just learning how to tilt and control that pelvis and the lower back, up to a Jefferson curl, and then all the way to that toe elevated Jefferson curl, which I would say was probably one of the hardest. You've also got the straddle Jefferson curl, which again for tennis players, in that wide stance going into that Jefferson curl. We see Djokovic, we see Serena in the splits all the time. Like that straddle position is a very, very common position in tennis. So towards the end of your journey in the Jefferson curls, when you're very confident, then we can start to play around with things like that. But what I love about the Jefferson curl, just to finish off, is that it helps us develop flexibility and mobility, but it also helps us develop strength through those ranges. So what somebody watching might have that flexibility to get into that position. And we do see this a lot. We see either people that are told they are very flexible, they're naturally flexible, or we see people who are naturally flexible and they don't have much strength through that range. So I think things like the Jefferson curl allows us to develop strength through those ranges as well. So it's not just a stretch, it's an exercise that we can actually gradually load, hold for time, and develop strength through those extreme ranges, which is excellent for high-level tennis players.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Should we move on to some strength?
Let's do it. What do we got today? Oh, it's me. All right, guys. Today I wanted to go through, we're in quarantine. People watching may not have access to equipment, and I wanted to do some upper body, but also the back. And I'm doing a bent over row with a towel, and I'm showing a couple different pieces of it and some variations of it. And what this is doing in the first part of this video, I'm not lifting like the barbell or lots of weight and kettlebell and really getting like massive muscle growth, but I'm getting severe muscle activation. I'm trying to pull this towel wide. So as I'm going slow, activating the backside, shoulders, lats, all those small muscles, belly in, core protected in that hip hinge pattern that Dio went over last week with the deadlift. So I'm in these giant positions, and the towel is creating, I'm constantly creating tension on that towel, which is going to be putting a lot of activation through the backside of the shoulders and the rotator cuff that needs to be really, really stable. And then thinking about very deliberate pulling movements. Obviously, I can pull the towel up, but how I'm pulling and trying to pull the back and activating the muscles and rip the towel apart at the same time is actually a very challenging movement. And here I'm just doing an end range isometric where everything's pulling and squeezing up as hard as I can. Different variation, I'm going split stance, so single leg, and doing that end range pulling movement across my body. So now there's a big core stability component of not rotating my body. So there's a lot of ways to play with this movement where if you don't have weights at home, just using a towel or a belt or sweatpants or something that allows you to maintain tension through pulling patterns and holds, you're going to be able to see some strength and stability added in a position that's probably undertrained during the whole shutdown or a strength standpoint, because no one really knows how to do it or what to do with no equipment. So yeah, there's a towel row, and we can show a lot more, but let's open the floor a little bit first. Bent over row.
Yeah. Very, very super creative, Josh, there with a towel going on. And again, I was worried about like the coaches and players out there that you can also, Josh mentioned isometric contraction, which means like there's no changes in the angle, right? It's like tension right there. Well, if you increase in strength within that angle, but if you want to work other things, you can hold the towel in different areas and then you work different angles. Let's say you got tension here and now you do it here and now you do it here, so you get like kind of like a complete workout. But this is great because pulling is something that is hard to do at home unless you have a pull-up bar or someone that you can like pull from the floor and go from there. But this is a really great one. Thank you, Josh, for that. Very creative, actually. So I actually never thought about that one, but that's what we're here for. That's awesome.
I think just going back to what we've mentioned a few times now as well, and again we've mentioned it a couple of times today, that mind-body connection. I think as soon as lockdown happened, as soon as we couldn't get into the gym, it was I can't do anything. But if you try those exercises, if you try and rip that towel in half like Josh did at the start, try and pull it apart, you don't need a band, you don't need a cable, you don't need weights. That is enough to give you a bit of a strength stimulus and activate those rear shoulder muscles, those rhomboids, those rear delts. Like it's one thing when I think people almost go to the gym with the intention of I've got to lift a weight. If I don't lift a weight, then I'm not doing anything. I think these exercises, these isometric holds, teaches that mind-body connection. So you're pulling that towel apart, your body's feeling it. You don't have to have state-of-the-art equipment all the time, or a set of dumbbells, kettlebells, a barbell. There are so many ways you can get around this, and I think, again, I seem to be talking about the traveling tennis player a lot today already, but in your hotel room, if you're traveling, every tennis player has a towel in their bag. Like these exercises can be implemented if you're on a 2-week tennis trip, but you get knocked out week one quite early or second, third round, and you've got a little bit of time to train before the next competition starts. These types of things, what we're basically saying is there's no excuse. I think the invention of coaches during this period is going to be a massive boost for most sports during this period. So things like using towels, using your own body weight is massive. And then, as Josh said, pulling. So I would have said from personal experience and And speaking to others, like sitting during this period has probably increased massively. So as we sit, our shoulders roll forward, we're pulled forward a little bit more. It's not a nice place for a tennis player to be if they want to play high-level tennis. So we need to be able to activate those rear shoulders, get into a nice, strong position for that shoulder to work properly when we get back on the court. Or if you're already on court, it's still a massively important area. So I love it, Josh. Really good.
Cool. Yeah, there's more things I want to talk about with this course, but so yeah, with this towel, guys, and Mike was saying like sitting forward and all the postural stuff. A lot of those backside areas, the decelerators of our ground strokes and of our serves, the overused small muscles, being able to hold and open and try to rip that towel apart is a great way to train those as you're building full strength and stability in that pattern at the same time. So in that video, when I'm pulling that towel apart and pulling up, I'm getting all of my back activation to go, but then that constant tension, as Mike was saying, all those small little muscles and postural guys, the overused muscles, the ones that sometimes are neglected, you see tennis players doing these external rotation movements, like we're getting full activation and stabilization of those in order to control these movements, and the constant tension allows that. So I just want to say, like, this is as fun and creative as you want to make it. So I just have a bath towel and I did a bent over row. I could put this in a door, and I could do it where I'm pulling horizontally this way, where I'm standing up. You can do it on single leg. You can do it in the split stance like I was doing with the one arm. You can hook it up to the door above you, and you can do more of the vertical pull. And you're pulling it down this way, or one arm at a time. And as Dio said, is a huge point, is you can train these positions or these isometric holds in different pieces or ranges of these movements. Let's say I have shoulder pain, or coming back from maybe you've been serving a lot and there's a little bit of pain in the shoulder because there was time off and now they're serving a lot. You could do some of these shoulder external rotation movements through different ranges. Hold, hold, hold. So you're going to have an overlap of strength and stability about 10 degrees up and down from the position of work. So you can avoid pain, still increase strength and stability, and get stronger all at the same time through those ranges based on that principle there. So as creative as you want, shoulder stuff. Obviously, if you have bands, you can do traditional band work, but there's really no reason why you can't connect and get a little bit strong and stable with these towel patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also to add a little bit of like what you were saying. You went into different angles for people, maybe more advanced. Like how you had the towel on your foot, were like this, and then you can start from the bottom with just a little bit of the towel, and then let it go with your foot a little bit, and just create your own. And then you're gonna have to you pull the towel and put it back on your foot, and then go at it. And you working again your brain and into release the towel a little bit and just pull it, start over again, release your feet a little bit, your foot a little bit, and pull it. So it's another one that maybe for more advanced athletes, they can how can I get really the full range there, adding to what Josh already taught me, and they can bring some movement into it. It takes some a little bit of creativity, even more, but it's possible. So release your foot a little bit, and you can play the tension with your foot. So that's something to think about.
Get it.
I think
play tug of war.
I think that's the big thing with this one as well, is like I alluded to earlier, is sometimes we go to the gym just with the intention of moving the weight, and once we've moved the weight, we feel like we've done the job. But that connection with, if you're doing like an isometric hold, so like Josh was doing as he was pulling the towel but not moving, like you can feel the muscle groups that are supposed to be working when you do that. what sometimes we can see in the gym is somebody's just moving a weight. That there's no real connection with what the movement that they're actually doing. They're just moving the weight from one place to another. Whereas I think these movements, uh, whether we've got equipment or not, these movements are amazing anyway. Just to pull and be able to feel the correct muscles working as we pull and hold those positions. It's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
From an injury prevention standpoint, like as Mike's saying, just going and moving weight in the gym, if you're using momentum, or as Dio said earlier, the muscles you can see in a mirror, all of those guys can kind of force movement, uh, regardless of if the stabilizers or if your joint wants to go there. You can force that. So if you want to get a little bit stronger and improve those major lifts or movements, I really feel that someone should be able to hold and own a position or go super slow within a range or a tempo prior to going crazy heavy and forcing movement. If I can squat 300 pounds, but I can't do a 45-second wall sit, then do I really own that lower leg position, or am I just able to go with the big muscles through those patterns? Okay. Same thing with big rows. Am I just yanking on my shoulder or moving the weight, as Mike said? Or am I really connecting? And can I hold some good tension for a long period of time with an isometric contraction? Tells my brain and body I am strong there, I am stable there, I am safe there, and I can protect my body there when I play tennis.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, going back again to this body mind connection and these times that we're going through right now, just like by yourself in your house, take advantage to get connected with yourself. But you guys just mentioned it there. The people go to the gym all the time and they just pull. Usually they do it really fast. Anybody could do it really fast, right? When you lower the tempo, when you ask them to spend a lot of time under the load, then the intensity goes up and you're like, whoa, you find yourself that you're a little weaker in some areas. So it's great information.
I hate to say it, but speed does hide weakness. Speed hides weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like was it last week, Mike? Your jumps, right? The repeated jumps, going fast and producing that force. You might miss the hip stability and the ankle. You might miss that. You're just jumping really fast, producing force. But can they hold those positions, right?
Yeah.
All right, I think we've beaten
awesome
this horse, huh? Move on to power.
Let's do it. Boom, boom, boom. So here I am doing some shoulder power movements specifically to the shoulder capsule, right? Like whatever your ball of your shoulder attaches to your body right there. Why I'm bringing this up, and why I'm changing the balls, I'm going to go through that a little bit too. So power movements, I would not like to do an exercise like this with more like 4 to 5 pounds because there's no need for it. I know there are like programs out there where you do heavy stuff with your arms, and you have to make sure that your shoulder uh, is strong enough. So you gotta do, if you show me now, guys, you have to be able to go through exercises where you're doing the boring thing of external rotation and internal rotations and doing things like this before you jump into these powerful movements. I'm bringing this up because hopefully everybody has a wall. You can throw the ball against the wall and catch. That's also working on your eyes. Maybe just a few people talk about eye training, right? Training for your eyes. We adjust the lenses of your eyes through muscles. So maybe eventually we go through that a little bit and I show you some cool things and give you some resources. But in the meantime, throwing this ball just like I'm doing, 1, 2, 3, 4, not even throwing at this time, just like going through the motion just like that, 8 to 10 times, relax and do it again. And I'm changing also the size of the ball, because changing the size of the ball, it works with different grip. And working a different grip is changing the exercises overall. So that's something for you to learn. You can be doing the exact same movement, and if you change your grip, you're changing your program, you're changing your exercise. Here I'm doing it with some trigger point balls. They're really light. If you have something heavier in your house, you can do actually your water bottle, and you can just actually that'll be really cool because it's moving. And we talked about before about perturbation here, right? So bringing different things that pretty much bother you in that plane and shake you. So bottled water is the best one for this. You can once again do these exercises in up and down, and catch. And you also working in different contractions of the shoulder. Shoulder is the most movable joint in the body. So the more different things you do, if you can show me again, you can go like from here to here to here to here. So different things, right? And you don't have to always throw the ball against the wall, but you can do that if you want. So it's up to you. I'm just trying to wake up some thoughts in your brain so you can come up with different things to do while you're at home. You know, you can do different stances with your feet, squat, lunges, and then work your shoulder that way. Now, again, if you're doing this and something hurts or you feel something weird, I always use my exercises as an assessment. You know, you can always go there and see different things. You know, oh, my back hurts a little bit. You know, maybe you need to release your scapula, which is huge and very important to shoulder work, right? The mobilization of the scapula on the back. So, what do you think, guys? And again, there's so many things, but let's stay within.
I mean, gosh, do we have 2 more hours, please? So this is under the power category. I would even argue this is a shoulder plyometric. When people think of like box jumps or plyometrics, I would say this is strength. I would say this is reactive stability. I would say it's injury prevention. I mean, if you think what you do with a serve and you're chasing a bad toss, or the ball gets up higher on your forehand and now you're contacting away from your body, and as Theo was showing, maybe now above here, is your shoulder able to produce power but also to control the joint as you're expecting to be in that weird position? You're fighting off this shot up here. Have you trained movement that allows you to still swing as big as your force can take you, but protect your shoulder joint and capsule at the same time? And that's exactly one thing that this exercise would do. And the rotator cuff, primarily, it's to really keep the ball in socket stable. And it's going to reflexively turn on and fire in the positions that allow to keep that joint the safest. So being able to train very aggressive movements at a very light weight, aggressive meaning maybe high velocity, high speed, like swinging a tennis racket, for example, and having that rotator cuff be stable in all of those positions, you're not only going to be protecting when you produce more force, but you're going to prevent injury in those kind of places that you don't practice on the tennis court, where a coach is feeding you forehands and you're just hitting serves. What about the times where you're stretching, you're looking away, and you're way above? So, I mean, massively important, Dio. I think it's a different look at what people might view as power. But what was it like a couple weeks ago? We talked about the scapula, like the small exercises, and then it's going to help your pull-up without training the pull-up. So this type of training can also help produce more force in the shoulder, hit shots harder because you know that you can train it safely. And then you're going to be able to lift more weight in the arms too. I mean,
yeah,
I'm done. Really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
It is like, I think as soon as we think power, we think jumping as far as we can, we think throwing as far as we can, but it's not all about, power isn't all about just throwing as hard as you can. And like you said, Dio, like with these movements, you don't need much weight at all. You know, it's a controlled movement. So like you talked about, the one where you throw off the wall, you've got that release. So you've got that ballistic element where you release. And then as it comes back off the wall, you've got that catch and you've got that deceleration in the shoulder. when we serve, we're trying to hit the ball pretty much as hard as we can. But then after we've hit the ball, a lot of the smaller muscles within the shoulders, it's their job to try and slow that movement down. And what we need to do is we need to be able to train that movement. So these things where we're trying to throw and catch the ball, or like you did, where you just drop and catch, and it's what you'll see with that. If we were to look at Dio's video again, we don't need to, but not one of those drops and catches are the same. So when we move on to the next one, where as he's dropping it and catching it, he doesn't catch that ball in the same place twice. You could do that 100 times and you still wouldn't catch it in the same place. Sometimes you won't catch it, like Dio didn't there, but yeah, training those movements. Like again, we've said in the other movements today, it's not something that you will just get into in one specific position. There are so many different positions that you will get into and that need to be trained, need to be controlled. So I absolutely love it. It's a great one to bring up.
That's awesome. And you brought up, a mistake, and I like to keep the mistakes in the video when they happen, because uh, people need to see the reality of things. Usually in fitness, people make things like so pretty, right? Like everything's so perfect, and it's not. So you're gonna drop things. You're gonna fall sometimes, and then like get up and keep going. So that's one of the reasons. I also wanted to bring up what you did about the deceleration muscle. If you're doing the exercise, like this, and your athlete say something like, "Man, something weird on my bicep is going on," especially the bicep. I was gonna stay there today. But the bicep is part of your braking mechanism. It's the one that stops the arm from keeping going forward. So if you do something like this and your bicep hurt, then we need to pay attention to that. Maybe we need to add some bicep curls into your workout, which is controversial because, right, a lot of people use bicep curls because they want to be bodybuilders or stuff like that. But when you actually break down the throwing movement, bicep curls are actually really important. And the way I teach, and I wanted to tell people, is like we always go and teach the bicep curl this way because it attaches here on the shoulder, and you do it completely that way. And there you can add some weight to it, so you pump that muscle up, and it helps on your throwing, believe it or not, right? It's like going in your car and having an amazing braking mechanism. Same thing. So biceps one of them, rotator cuff muscles, like Mike was saying, So everything works in conjunction, right? Like they help each other. Uh, so think about those things. Again, love to use my things as assessments as we go. And again, this is another example of it. So
I love the point that you made about the bicep curls. I think over the last maybe 10 or 15 years, bicep curls in particular and a lot of other exercises have almost been quashed because it's not functional. But I think the functional word's almost dying off a little bit now as well, because bicep curls are functional depending on the function that you want it to be used for. So if you want to improve the strength to be able to decelerate that arm and to be able to withstand 100 plus serves in a match, in a tournament, like that's its function. Everything has a function. You've just got to know. It's like having a big toolbox. The bicep curl is one tool in your toolbox. If you've only got a hammer, then everything has to become a nail because you're just hitting and hitting and hitting. Whereas if you've got hundreds of different tools in your toolbox, a bicep curl, a shoulder press, the Jefferson curl, everything like that in your toolbox, then it's just a matter of, well, what do I need? Right, I'll pick this one out of the toolbox because that's going to suit this purpose. And bicep curls have absolutely got a purpose in programs. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, very advanced trainers might know this, but not everybody watching here is an advanced trainer. So you have to remember that again, you can always isolate movements, as especially if you are going throughout the season, right? We are functional trainers here. We all agree with that. But there's many times study your athletes where you have to go back to knee extension, knee flexion for your hamstring, quadricep with the extension, a little like forearm workouts, bicep workout, tricep workouts where you need to pump those muscles to keep going. So don't be all against it, just use it when you need it. So we give you the tools. I know advanced trainers, you already know this, but for people that are learning as we go, so you can isolate, but make sure that then you integrate everything and work as a whole. So cool.
Well, I want to do. We're just about done, I think, but
Yeah.
I haven't spoken in a few minutes. I would just want to say like 2 words.
Go.
So with today, I mean, I showed kind of the pulling or the towel strength, and then Dio showed the power with the shoulder or the shoulder plyos or the shoulder power, however you want to view that. You can kind of pair those together in the same type of workout, and you can be doing some sort of aggressive shoulder. I say aggressive in the sense of velocity, not aggressive in the sense of violent. Okay, so you can do some of those shoulder movements, and then maybe you can get one of those towel pull aparts and hold that isometric contraction. So you're forcing those stabilizers to work when they're a little fatigued, which is when most injuries are going to happen, when there's some sort of nervous system or physical fatigue, and then things aren't going to be functioning or firing as rapidly or as quickly as they should be. So pairing them together can be good. And then just bringing up one more point with the grip strength, changing the ball size and the grip strength. I mean, rackets have so many different grips, being able to squeeze on contact, on volleys, not collapsing the wrist. I mean, so many reasons to be training that. And it actually, the grip is going to play a role in the nervous system, and it affects up into the shoulder and the rotator cuff. And Dio, we were talking about this a week ago, right? Like a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, but there's an overflow in the system that is important that uses fingers, hands, and grips to challenge the different positions and activation of up into the neck and into the rotator cuff. So changing the grip, as Dio said, is changing the exercise. So even with the towel exercises, I can hold the end of the towel and there's very little to grab, and I can make that towel super, super, super thick and just have at it and play around with that.
Huge.
Yeah. Just wanted to bring that point up.
Yeah, I mean, on and on and on, right? So with this grip stuff, that's why we, at least my people, we don't work with any kind of glove on their hands because I want them to feel what they're holding. So the rotator cuff actually, it's completely aware of what you're holding. When you wear a glove, this is going to be a controversial out there. When you wear the glove, it blocks the message of, like you have your holding your tact. The glove blocks the message that goes into your shoulder. So I'd rather go like bare hand, just like you were born, and then go from there. So, and after all, you play tennis with a glove. So there we go. All right, that's what I got today. So I'm done.
You just opened a bit of a can of worms for me when you said about gloves on hands, because I've got the same feeling of shoes and socks on feet as well. So, yeah, maybe we keep that one for another day, but everybody get the shoes and socks off, spend some time barefoot. Yeah. Cool and deal.
Awesome.
That was awesome, guys. That was fun.
So, guys, thank you for joining us today. We'll be here every Tuesday at 4 o'clock Central European time and 10 o'clock.
9.
Is it 10 o'clock your time? 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. Is that the one? Oh, yes. I'm getting better with my times. And you can also catch us on demand on the Fitness 2020 or the Tennis 2020 YouTube site and the Austin Tennis and Soto Tennis Facebook sites as well. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Sweet.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
See you next week.
See you guys. See you next week.
All right.